It's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 77. Here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing this week, man?
Happy to be back, man. Lots to talk about in the world of MMA. I'm sure you have plenty on your mind, so excited to be here. How about you, Phil?
I've got plenty on my mind, Fight Geek. A lot of it not positive after DC's tough loss, but that's okay. I'm learning to deal with it slowly.
Oh, we're gonna break it all down.
Yeah, we are. Okay, guys. So here's what's on tap for today. We're gonna start off with a news and rumors section because there's just so much popping in the world of MMA news. After that, we're gonna jump into a recap and review of UFC 252. After that, we're going to jump into the preview and picks for UFC Vegas 7 from both myself and Fight Geek. And then finally after that, my favorite section, listener questions and more. So, Fight Geek, let me start off with some of the biggest news. So, after Stipe Miocic defeated Daniel Cormier in the trilogy, and we'll get on into that fight in more detail in a second, Jon Jones very recently, yesterday, announced that he was vacating the UFC light heavyweight title, and that he will be vacating that. He's made inferences about heavyweight. What are your thoughts? Is it going to be is Stipe Miocic fighting Ngannou in a rematch next, or has Jones placed himself into that heavyweight title shot picture by force?
Well, I think this is a no-brainer. I think clearly Stipe versus Jon Jones is the ideal fight in Jon's eyes, probably the UFC's eyes as well, but obviously they have somewhat of a cantankerous relationship at this point. But yeah, I mean, 100%. You know, Stipe did look very good, but I do think Jon probably watched that performance and thought that, you know, he can win that belt. I do truly believe Jon thinks he could beat either of those men at heavyweight. I don't know why now is the time that he's deciding to vacate his title. But, yeah, I think it makes all the sense in the world for Jones, you know, just based off the name value alone. I know Francis technically deserves it in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
But Stipe has already alluded to the fact that he's not necessarily overly excited to fight Francis again. There's a couple interviews back.
I wouldn't be either. But wait, hang on.
Right, no, I know. But for him, Stipe probably looks at Jon Jones as arguably a bigger name, a bigger play for his legacy, and a winnable fight. So I think when Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic look at each other, they both see a guy they truly believe they could beat, and it's the freshest matchup for both of them as far as name value goes.
Hang on. You just said that the UFC and Jon Jones right now have a somewhat cantankerous relationship. So not a great relationship. I agree with you. So my question is, why are you so convinced that it's a no-brainer, as you say, that Stipe's fighting Jones next? Because I completely disagree.
Because I
totally disagree with you.
Stipe would prefer that Jon Jones fight, and I think Stipe is going to be
Dana
in a position
White cares
of power
what
here.
Stipe
He's already beat Francis.
Since when does Stipe ever have any power? With all respect to Stipe's greatness, Dana hates him.
Well, you're right there. But, I mean, to a certain extent, Stipe has gotten his way. Do you remember when he threw a big fit because he didn't get that rematch with
Sure,
DC?
Of course. Yeah.
And it took him a year, but did he get the fight he wanted?
Yeah, with a little bit of luck because Brock Lesnar didn't pan out. Sure.
Stipe Miocic is willing to sit out, you know, however long it takes to bleed out the UFC to get a super fight with Jon Jones.
So you think that's happening next? You think that Miocic Ngannou 2 is not happening next? You think it's Jones?
Yes. I mean, honestly, I do. Just after this past weekend, and we'll get into some further breakdown in a minute, but physically looking at Stipe, he was in great shape. He was probably as trim as he's ever been. So that even, the fact that he was, you know, looking a little lighter than normal, I think made Jon even feel more comfortable. So, again, I truly believe Jon and Stipe probably would prefer that matchup.
I understand what they would prefer, Fight Geek, and I agree with you, but I'm asking what you think of the next.
But Stipe's gotten what he's preferred, and generally Jon does too.
Okay, for sure. And I think it's a very fair guess, by the way.
But what I'm saying is they'll probably both have to bleed out the UFC, and it might be a year before we see them, but I have a feeling that when we see them both again, it will be against each other.
That's a very fair guess. let the record show that I personally believe that they're going to force Stipe Ngannou to. That Jones will not get what he wants because I think he's not a very
Well,
apt businessman.
What if Derek Lewis goes out, hypothetically knocks out Blades? And then
They just announced that fight. You're right. Is a fight night main event. Yep.
Yeah, and then Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou for next in line makes a lot of sense considering Lewis has a win over Francis.
I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, look, it's a fair argument.
Wrong. Francis obviously has earned a title shot, but he does have a loss to the current champion who's been outspoken about not wanting to fight him right away. So if there's fresh matchups on the table, I think Stipe would prefer those, and intelligently so.
All right, a lot of options on the table. Moving on really quick. Sorry, what'd you say?
No, I said absolutely. Lots of options on the table.
Okay, lots of options.
Interesting to see.
Yep. Moving on really fast because we didn't cover this last week. Corey Anderson to Bellator.
We did cover this last week.
You're right, we did. Actually, we did cover this. We talked about the Bader matchup, and the second I said that, there was kind of this awkward realization.
So I feel the same. I'm super excited about the Bader matchup this weekend. I think that Bellator title fight will be very good, but I think Corey Anderson is going to be knocking on that door. I think Bader has even said he doesn't mind if Corey Anderson debuts in a title fight. So I'm sure we'll see him there very soon, as soon as he's physically ready.
And as Corey Anderson pointed out this previous week in his interview with Chael Sonnen, even Scott Coker tweeted out that he's guessing that Corey Anderson will be watching the title fight between Bader and his young opponent, very closely. So that makes me think that Anderson.
So yeah, I mean, not necessarily the biggest names in the sport, but an interesting little situation going on there.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on real fast since we already covered that. Paige Van Zandt going to Bare Knuckle FC. Did we cover that last week?
I'm not sure, but
I don't think we did.
I heard that the Bare Knuckle FC guy said it's a multi-million-dollar deal, so I'm not sure how that...
Yes, no, I've heard that as well.
I've
heard
not sure
seven
how that's
figures.
possible. I don't know that they generate that kind of money. Maybe they do, but it will certainly be intriguing to see how this plays out.
Yeah, it's a great point. I have expressed the same shock.
But let's just say this: if they really are giving her multi-millions of dollars, then she probably had no choice.
No, I've heard it's a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal.
Well, then that was the move, because I have a feeling she wasn't going to be making multi-millions of dollars in Bellator.
Yeah, no, she clearly went where the money is. And by the way, respect to Bare Knuckle FC if they have that money and they're able to grab her.
One thing I've always said about Paige Van Zandt is she is kind of a scrapper. I mean, that shows some self-belief to go into bare knuckle boxing, considering the options on the table for her. So she's not afraid to fight, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, really quick, we're moving through these news and headlines. Okay, so these three main events have been confirmed, all within the next 2 months. Covington versus Woodley, that's going to take the previous spot of UFC 253. UFC 253 being moved back 1 week for Covington Woodley to be a five-round main event. Blades versus Lewis confirmed, and Korean Zombie versus Ortega confirmed. We talked about
all three are bangers. Love all three of those main events.
Yeah, we talked about Blades Lewis. Am I crazy, Fight Geek, for thinking that Korean Zombie is going to sleep Ortega badly? Because shout out to Kairos, who I love, Kairos MMA. He was saying that everyone's sleeping on Ortega because of their emotions and that Korean Zombie's going to lose. What do you think of that?
Well, people definitely are sleeping on Ortega because of the layoff and just kind of, he's the flavor of the week to hate on. But he's still incredibly talented. Up until the one bad performance, he was, snatching necks off, guys who are respected veterans, knocking out guys who have never been knocked out before. So Brian Ortega still, at his age, should be in his prime. So do I think it's crazy to think he may win? No. But do I favor Korean Zombie? Absolutely. Brian Ortega got boxed up by Max Holloway. Korean Zombie, since his return, has been incredibly sharp on the feet, very deadly on the feet. His grappling is very strong as well. So I would favor Zombie, but I think it's a very close, very intriguing. It's going to be an awesome fight.
Totally agree. Okay, so I've got one more news and headline piece, but it's better if that is covered within the vein of the recap and review of 252. So, with that, are we ready to move on to the UFC 252 recap?
Let's do it. I think it was my first losing card of the year as far as picks go.
Ooh. Does that have anything to do with the main event where you chose Daniel and I correctly chose Stipe?
Are we going to start there?
um, are we starting? Are we starting from the bottom or the top?
I was 5-5 going into that match. Yeah, let's just jump into it. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, I think Stipe Miocic looked like he was in the shape of his life. I think he could have gone 8 rounds with how he looked in there.
What'd you think of the fight? What'd you think of the fight? Did you enjoy the fight in general?
I enjoyed the first 3 rounds. I feel like the action slowed down pretty dramatically later on in the fight, and I do feel like there was defeated energy from DC, especially following the eye poke in the 4th or the 3rd round. Even though the 4th round, I think
he won the 4th. He
definitely won the 4th round. But there was a defeated energy that I remember. Maybe that was more in the 5th than anything. But
yeah.
I thought 1 through 3 were competitive. Obviously, both guys were respecting each other very much. Very technical fight. I couldn't be more impressed with the shape Stipe came in. I made my DC pick before I saw the weigh-ins, and I'm blown away by how good Stipe looked physically. You know, I think he's never been down that thin before, which means that he was really going to, extend the fight versus DC. And you saw, I think DC kind of fell off a cliff there a bit. He really wasn't threatening, even though he was landing in the 4th. I never felt like, even when he was landing his heavier shots, Stipe really wasn't affected all that much, and I think that's another factor that goes into your cardio and your overall fitness.
Definitely. I think Daniel didn't wrestle that went out the window.
That's because I don't think Daniel's cardio was there to wrestle later in the fight. I think he tried to wrestle early on, had a little bit of success, but started to see that Stipe was going to be the fresher guy at the end of all those exchanges and decided to slug it out a bit. He ended up losing that as well. So, I took Daniel at his word and thought that he would be just a little bit better than Stipe, which is what he was saying in the interviews. But the fact of the matter is Stipe was just a little bit better than him in all facets and won a close decision. Now, I know there's some controversy, and we can hop into that if you want. But the fact of the matter is,
I really don't. I'll be honest. I really don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Maybe we need to. I think we kind of need to.
Yeah, I mean, if the facts are told, DC had already poked Stipe in the eye in that fight by the time Stipe ended up poking DC. So was it unfortunate? 100% unfortunate. But DC poked him in the eye 3 times over 50 minutes. And unfortunately, Stipe got him back, and it seemed to be the worst of the eye pokes, which clearly affected Daniel to an extent. But that didn't affect his cardio. That didn't affect him going away from his wrestling. All of that stuff that really caused Daniel to lose, 4 rounds to 1 or 3 rounds to 2. So, yeah
I had it 3-2. How did you score going into the 5th? I definitely had it 2-all. But
yes,
I'm curious.
As did I. I scored the fight on fight night, albeit a couple drinks in, 48-47 for Stipe. So,
as did I.
I think the 3rd judge, and now if you go back and watch it with a clear head, it's easier to score 49-46, I think. But I think 48-47 is justifiable.
Yeah. I honestly agree with just about everything you said. I think Stipe would have won either way. Obviously Daniel started off the fight with the eye poke. So want to say that DC started off with that eye poke.
Yeah, my only point with that is that DC should have been so aware of the eye pokes that for him to go do that in the 1st round was almost disrespectful. So it's hard for him to get much sympathy.
It looked pretty accidental, but you're right.
But the thing is he should have been overly cautious based on the fact that he'd already done it twice. So to do it in the 1st round was almost just like completely disrespecting the fact that he had done that in the prior fight. So it's really hard for you to or anybody, in my opinion, to make a big case that DC was done wrong by getting an eye poke. It's kind of.
No, I mean, I hear you. And that's what all of the vast majority of not just Stipe fans, but MMA fans on Twitter were telling me very similar things. Look,
I mean,
DC had it coming.
Sport,
DC deserved it. It's an eye for an eye. Literally.
No, he did not deserve
an eye for
it,
an eye. That's the way it is.
We see this every week, with 9 nut shots on a fight card. Nut shots and eye pokes, they're a part of the sport.
I guess what just, and again, I don't think it would have made a difference. I want to state that. I think what's bothering me, Fight Geek, about it was Stipe would have won anyway. So why did he have to dirty his performance with that?
But I don't believe, see, you think this is something internally he did,
Of course he was getting Daniel back. Because, no, I understand why Stipe felt that way. He felt disrespected. He felt DC had done it a bunch more times.
I don't know, man. When you're in there with each other, you're trying to protect each other. You're moving your hands around. You're throwing strikes. You're grabbing. You're trying to clinch. You're doing all these different things.
I think Stipe was annoyed with DC for all the eye pokes, and possibly justifiably so.
I 1,000% believe it was incidental.
Really? All right, fair enough.
I mean, I can't believe you think that he intentionally eye poked him.
It wasn't exactly a flick. It wasn't exactly a flick. He stuck his whole hand in there.
Yeah, but it was more like, DC was coming in. He was using his hand as a distance, gauging some distance. His hand was open, which we see all the time with fighters.
Well, I don't want to get too into it. I can feel the Stipe fans getting really pissed at me, and I want to say again that Stipe deserved the win. He really did. He would have won anyway, and he won fair and square.
For sure. And it's unfortunate, but I think the difference is Stipe's 36, DC's 41. DC, he looked a little sluggish to me. He just did not look super sharp. It seemed like he was really relying on the fact that he was going to be able to pull that big right hook or that big overhand right that he had landed in one of the previous fights. And I think he did actually land it 2 or 3 times when Stipe just ate it and came forward, which I think defeated Daniel a little bit as well. So I just think, Father Time's undefeated, and that wasn't the best version of Daniel Cormier, unfortunately. But I don't believe he's necessarily done. I just don't.
Don't even put that in the universe, Fight Geek.
Put that in the universe.
I pray that Cormier is done. There's nothing that could be worse. Listen, the truth is, and I said this, by the way, you can go back a year, everyone. And I said this a year ago on the show, but I'll say it again. He really should have retired after 241, especially.
100%.
And if he continues now, he deserves whatever bad things come to him. And you guys know that I love Daniel more than just about any other fighter, besides maybe Faber. So
I just have a feeling that kind of performance is really going to eat at him.
I mean, yeah. To be honest, it should. He looked like shit. I mean, he looked really bad. Compared to my
if
I'm being honest, he looked really
saying,
bad.
I'm just going to be better. And then to show up and not really be better in any facet.
He looked far worse than 241. I mean, he looked maybe 100 times worse.
And I believe he actually
it was a big step back.
Less, but he looked a little more flabby to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely. I just was surprised because he was saying, now I'm taking it seriously. Now I know what to do. And he looked like, 4 or 5 steps back from 241. So whatever he was doing for 241, go back to that, because this was a disaster.
No, he's got to retire. I hope he stays.
Of course,
on.
I'm just being facetious. Obviously, he has to retire.
Dana White
his story's over.
Doesn't want to close the door on that, and I feel like the competitor in DC, but we'll see.
Right. I mean, I'm going to avoid saying anything bad about Dana White right now for what he would sell for what. But yes. Agreed. Okay, moving on. Marlon Chito Vera defeats Sugar Sean O'Malley via TKO elbows from the guard, 4 minutes and 40 seconds into round number 1.
Yeah, this was an anticlimactic
with a lot of controversy.
Yeah, lots of controversy, but, I do believe the damage was caused by Chito, either checking a kick or within some contact. So again, this is the sport we're in. There's fluky, weird things that happen all the time when you're in a hand-to-hand fight, combat with another individual. The possibilities are endless, and we just saw another one in this fight. I'm sure Sean will be back. I don't think his stock takes too big of a hit here. we may see this fight a couple years down the road also. I mean, I think Sean's 25 and Cheeto's 27. So I think there's enough controversy in this one to see it again someday. But don't want to take anything away from Cheeto Vera, because to me that was a win.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely was a win to me. And then really quick, just we've got a listener question that's very, very relevant to this. This is from @the_MMA_king. Do you think the injury of O'Malley was caused by Vera or caused by O'Malley himself? #AskSplitPod. So
I've heard about 10 different people give their opinion on this, and I'm sure that somewhere in
10 different opinions too. 10 different opinions from 10 different people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all the radio shows and the talking heads, just all of their opinions. I think I've listened to Ben Askren and all the. And
we're about to get to him. Don't give him away. We're about to get to that.
I definitely think Cheeto caused the damage, either with checking a kick or landing a kick. I'm not sure.
And who cares, honestly, guys? It doesn't matter. O'Malley's leg gave out and he lost.
Who goes in and then who comes out with their hand raised, really?
Like, I mean, seriously, dude, like, if your leg doesn't hold up against a top opponent, that's a part of the game. O'Malley lost no matter what because of Vera. I don't care if he misstepped. Like, people,
but I do think
crazy.
It's a tad inconclusive, though, because I think Sean was actually winning the early exchanges. So,
but if his legs are gonna be like twigs, it doesn't matter.
If he can't throw a right leg kick or have it checked without injuring it or it going numb, I really haven't got a report on exactly what's happened. I thought that they said it's actually not a break.
I heard it. No, it's definitely not a break, which was interesting. Okay. I was surprised.
So that leads you to believe it's more like that Michael Chandler situation where it was a nerve that was hit from a kick or a check, which then is 100% attributed to Cheeto Vera.
Yeah. So really quickly, wanted to touch on this, and you were kind of hinting at this. Ben Askren said yesterday on Ariel Helwani's show on ESPN, he said that Sean has to grow up. I would be so humiliated to be taken out of the octagon on a stretcher with an ankle injury. You'd have to kill me. Look at Macy Barber. Do you think she used a stretcher? Did McGregor use a stretcher after DS2? You'd have to kill me, says Ben Askren. Strong words for O'Malley, calling him, he needs to grow up, called him humiliating. What do you think?
I mean, it's a little bit of an old school kind of mentality, but I agree with Ben Askren. I think it's, I mean, it is what it is. Like he said, Macy Barber got out of there on her own power. Conor McGregor got out of there on her own power. It kind of reminded me of
Conor couldn't walk after the DS2 fight.
If any of you basketball fans out there remember Paul Pierce leaving the game in a wheelchair a couple years ago in the playoffs, it was kind of like that. It was really over dramatic. I mean, when I saw him leaving on the cart, like out of the tunnel, it was so over dramatic. It was way overdone. So I get the cinematic portion of it, the show of it all. But yeah, I think for sure, maybe, tone down the hype and just kind of reel it in. He was calling out Cody Garbrandt pretty disrespectfully.
Yeah, seriously,
basically
dude.
A prospect.
Get Garbrandt's name out your mouth.
This game has a strange way of humbling you. This could just be that,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Look, guys, you can get as mad as you want. It was extremely extra. Spare me he didn't know the injury, blah, blah, blah. I mean, what is this, Teflon? Are we made of paper? I mean, come on, guys. He's a cage fighter.
Did Cyborg walk to the back when his skull was dented in?
Tell Sugar Sean to walk it out, okay? I don't care about he doesn't know the extent of the injury, okay, guys? I mean, seriously, like, are you watching cage fighting? Or are you watching cricket or European football or something? I don't know what's going on here, but Sean's got to walk it off. I thought it was really extra, and I thought Askren was
considering he also finished a fight on his back injured at one point too, which looking back could be considered a little extra at this point.
Yeah.
So, with that said, Sean O'Malley still has a ton of talent, a ton of big-time bright future ahead of him. If he comes back and has an impressive performance, I could definitely see, his star rise, and we will see that Cheeto Vera rematch again someday.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wish the best for Sean in a quick recovery. I loved his Instagram post after.
Everyone's a Sugar Sean fan, even if we're critical of a little bit of, his antics or whatever here, we're still big fans.
Did you see his social media post where he's with all the girls smoking the blunt and it says humbled?
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty funny. Okay, moving on. Jairzinho Rosenstrike defeats Junior Dos Santos, 3 minutes and 47 seconds of round number 2.
Fighter, man. He seemed to be getting out, he seemed to be losing that fight again, like the Overeem fight, until the end when he just, decided to charge in and knock him out. Interesting fighter, man. I think in the Countdown show they really about Biggie Boy and his cardio for a big man. The more I watch him, the more I just see him kind of outlast his opponent. And then if he's able to do that, he just comes in and knocks him right out, which is very impressive.
Absolutely.
It's not overly technical for a guy, with kind of, his striking accolade. But when he decides to put the mitts on you, there seems to be, quite a bit of concussive force. So that was crazy. Junior has a horrible habit of, backing away from his opponent and circling right into the power hand now. I almost saw that coming 30 seconds before it happened, because even though Junior was in full control, it seemed like he was eluding in the wrong positions. Maybe I'm wrong, but it felt inevitable. Sucks for Junior. 3rd straight knockout, loss. Fight he was winning, but Biggie Boy, he has that ultimate eraser power. Interesting stuff.
Absolutely. Moving on to the last fight that I wanted to cover, at least, or needed to cover on this card, is the first fight of the main card, Merab Dvalishvili. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've gotten better now.
Davishvili.
I think it's Dvalishvili. Seriously. I'm being dead serious. I think that's a correct pronunciation. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to talk to my
Either
Georgian
way,
MMA
what did you think of this fight? Because I thought it was a little lackluster from both guys. I didn't think there was a ton of action. Obviously,
I don't care. I love Merab. I don't care. I'm Team Merab forever. I don't care how he wins.
But did you think the performance was great?
Yeah, I mean, it's how he wins, Fikey. That's what he does. He's a machine. They call him the machine for a reason. He grinds you down.
Yeah, but he didn't really grind Dodson down. They didn't even barely put
didn't?
mitts on each other. I mean, I don't know. It looked like Dodson, for lack of a better word, just couldn't get off. I mean, he wasn't throwing anything. He tried to throw a little bit here, couple flurries, but again, which has been kind of his MO over the last few years, he just did not have enough offense, which is crazy considering the kind of cardio and quickness he has,
Well, I don't think you're giving enough credit to Merab here. I mean, he's a wrestling machine, and he overpowers you. He overpressures you.
Yeah, well, you say he's a wrestling machine. What was he, 1 for 12 on takedowns?
He still won unanimously, didn't he?
Well, he won unanimously, but he didn't win with a wrestling heavy attack.
What did he win with? He was a pressure heavy attack.
It was more or less a point fight on the feet where Dodson was barely throwing anything other than a little flurry blitz here and there.
Wait, you're saying Merab didn't keep pressure on Dodson?
No, he did keep pressure on him, but there was not a lot of offense from either side. And when Merab closed the distance and tried to get Dodson down, or actually got him down, Dodson was up and back to his feet almost immediately every single time.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean,
so he didn't win like he normally does. I get what you're saying with the pace, but it was neither guy was able to really get their mitts on the other one, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the thing I love about Merab, I don't know if you saw the post-fight press conference, but he came in there. He was, man, what a great guy. You could just see.
Very humble guy. Obviously,
did you see when they asked about Aljamain Sterling? Oh, how far away are you from a title shot? You see what he said? He was so nice. He said, well, I know that Aljamain Sterling. Okay, I'm going to stop trying to do the accent.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Stop. He said, I know that Aljamain Sterling is about to become the champ, and he's going to be the champ for many years. So I'm not thinking about the title at all, not for a while, not for 10 years. That's his quote. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see teammates like that. And, Aljo was one of the 3 guys cornering Merab for this win. And frankly, it's pretty cool to see that kind of loyalty.
It is very cool to see that kind of loyalty.
Yeah, so, okay. All right, any other fights you wanted to talk about, or are we ready to move on to our preview and picks for...
I think we can move on.
Okay. moving on to our preview and picks for UFC Vegas 7. And that is, of course, Edgar versus Munoz.
Yep.
All right, so let's start off from the bottom of the main card here. They really have to get better titles in these UFC Vegas, 1 through 100, don't they?
Right.
Okay, main card, Takashi Sato versus Daniel Rodriguez. This is a welterweight bout.
Daniel Rodriguez.
Daniel Rodriguez. I also have Rodriguez, and I've got him winning by first round TKO.
Sounds good.
Okay, moving on. Maria Agapova versus Shayna Dobson.
Yeah, I'm going to take Agapova in this one.
Dobson, it should be noted, is 3-4.
Should it be noted?
Well, I don't know.
It sounds unnoteworthy.
Well, okay. Name another fighter with a losing record that stayed in the UFC besides Artem.
Rachel Ostovich.
Ooh. Does she have a losing record?
She has a losing record currently, I believe, unless the UFC fluffs it so it doesn't look like that.
Wow, you came ready with that counter. Okay, fair enough. And I've got Agapova by unanimous decision. Okay.
Fair.
All right. Moving on. Mike Rodriguez, light heavyweight, versus Marcin Prachnio from Poland.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mike Rodriguez in this one.
And I've got Marcin Prachnio with the upset unanimous decision.
Really? Okay.
All right. Now we've got OSP versus Alonzo Menefield.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because this is back at 205, right?
Yes, it is.
And OSP just had a heavyweight fight where he didn't look good. OSP is a tricky guy, but I think age is catching up to him. I'm actually going to take Alonzo Menefield via second round knockout in this one.
And I'm going to take OSP via split decision.
Ooh.
All right.
OSP cardio is not going to see many decisions, my friend.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Moving on to the main event, which honestly is getting a little bit of hate that's unwarranted. I get that it's not the sexiest.
A little bit of hate?
Yeah, a lot of people. Pedro Munoz versus Frankie Edgar, bantamweight fight, 5 rounds. Munoz, the number 4 ranked bantamweight contender. Edgar coming down from 145.
Who's mad at this fight? This is a nice looking fight.
I think a lot of people are sort of saying, is this the best 5-rounder?
But I think that's absurd. This is a solid fight. Pedro Munoz almost killed Cody Garbrandt, and Frankie Edgar's a legend.
Yeah, so who you got in this one?
Oh, I'm going to take Frankie Edgar. I just think that I've been waiting for this 135-pound Frankie Edgar for a long time, and I think it's better late than never. He's a guy who's fought larger men his whole career. Every fight of his career, arguably, he's been the smaller man. So I think this is finally going to be an opportunity where he can be the bully. I want to see what Frankie Edgar possibly looks like as the bully, which is interesting to me. So with that said, I'm going to take Frankie Edgar via a grinding decision.
This is horrible. I also have Frankie Edgar via grinding decision. We should be disagreeing here. Okay.
You've been listening to my methodology too much.
Yeah, you wish. Okay, guys, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we'll be back with listener questions and more. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 77, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, and we are now back with my favorite section of all, that is Listener Questions!
All right, let's hop right into them.
I broke like a fat person sweat just now. Am I becoming fat, Fight Geek? I just broke like a little fat person sweat with that little drum beat.
You need to get out more.
Clearly, wow. And I had a jog today. Wow, got a longer jog, I guess. Longer jogs needed. Okay, this question really quick is from Zan Bando. That's at Zan Bando 99. Love this guy. He says, hashtag AskSplitPod. Will Jones fight Miocic next, or has Francis Ngannou earned the title shot? I think we covered this really quick.
Yeah, I say Jones and Stipe will fight next, even if they have to wait a year to do it.
We totally disagree. I think it's Miocic versus Ngannou next, with Jones on the sideline. I think Ngannou wins that fight via KO, and then they make Ngannou versus Jones later in 2021.
Excellent. I got a question from Victor Dick.
Victor Dick, what up?
Since we've never seen a champ go down and win the belt while holding the title in a heavier division, who out of the current champs or possible future champs has the best chance of going down to win a second belt at a lighter division? It's a great question. You got any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being biased, but my first and almost only thought, honestly, Fight Geek is Gilbert Durinho Burns. And before everyone, rolls your eyes, look, Burns used to fight a lightweight. During our interview several weeks ago, he said that, if he were to try and, change weight classes after winning a belt, he would go down to lightweight over, going up to middleweight, which makes sense. So I want to say Gilbert Burns.
That makes a lot of sense, Phil. I didn't expect that out of you.
Oh, wow. Thanks so much. What a good friend I have in you.
To go down, that's a really hard one. Yeah, I guess. Well,
You want another answer? John Jones. He could be a middleweight easy. Let's just call it like
No, he could not be a middleweight easy.
Of course he
walks
could.
around at 230 pounds.
Oh, so he could be a heavyweight? Which one is it?
Seems like he's going to be a heavyweight.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know if that answers the question. I think he's asking who is a current champion who can go down.
Oh, who is?
Maybe Peter Yan. He looks like he has a very slight frame for a 135er.
That'd be the only. That's the only answer I could even entertain is Peter Yan.
Do you think Valentina could ever go down?
She can't make 115.
Yeah. I think Peter Yan makes the most sense just by looking at his size.
Yeah. I would entertain Nunez, but I don't think she can make 25.
Well, here's one.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe it. I was going to say Stipe at 205, but that's not happening.
Yeah.
He was at 233 this past weekend, and he looked like a middleweight.
Yeah, I don't think he can make it either.
No way.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Are you next or am I?
You are.
Okay, all right. So this question from Glitch, that's at MMA Port, an OG of the show. What's up, Glitch? He says, hashtag AskSplitPod. Is DC a GOAT at 205 or at heavyweight? And this is such a great question.
And the answer is just no.
Correct. Actually, correct. I totally agree with you.
He's not the GOAT at either of those.
He's not a GOAT at either. Is he one of the greatest of all time? Oh, yeah. I've got him in my top 5, and I'm happy to defend that all day, every day. I have a feeling I might have to. But he's number 5 for me all time.
All time, DC to me is a top 15 fighter.
Top 15? So you don't have him in your top 10?
In the history of the sport, yeah. Maybe top 10 is a little more accurate. But, yeah, he's not top 5 for me.
Who would you put him in? Who would you put in front of him besides GSP, Anderson, and Jones? Go ahead with the others.
As far as resume goes, Jose Aldo, Demetrius Johnson, Amanda Nunes.
Okay, Demetrius Johnson. So does strength of schedule mean anything? Because let's just call a spade a spade. He fought a bunch of nobodies to win those titles.
But he had a longer title run in his one division than DC had in both of his divisions combined.
You could find a 5-year-old and you could have him win the UFC fat little kid heavyweight champion of the world for 10 years.
Cord. All right. Well, I just gave you a handful that I think's better than DC. Over their overall career.
I respectfully
title run.
Yeah.
What is DC's longest title reign?
It does. See, you're looking at it differently. I can already tell by that question. What is the longest title reign?
Well, I'm free to
You're
look
right.
at however I want to look at my GOAT list.
No, you can't. You have to look at it my way.
That's what I've been told.
Okay. All right. Good.
All right.
All right. So
All right.
moving on. So yeah, the answer is neither MMA Glitch. I've got him as a top 5 or maybe 6, 7, or 8. You know.
But who cares? I mean, he's a surefire Hall of Fame legend, right? I mean, is that
No,
enough?
he's one of the greatest fighters of all time.
Yeah,
And,
no doubt.
I mean, it's funny how much, by the way, the tone changes. People were saying before the fight, oh, whoever wins this is the greatest heavyweight of all time. And then the second DC loses, they go, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. It's like, are you guys smoking crack cocaine?
Sean O'Malley's the perfect example of how MMA fans are. The 24 hours leading up to the fight, he was, the second coming of Conor McGregor. And then the 24 hours after the fight, he's a spoiled, outspoken brat who has no toughness. So that's just the nature of the sport we're in.
Yep, exactly.
It's like DC's either the best or the worst. There's no place for him anywhere else.
Yeah, and again, like you said, that kind of explains MMA fans in general. Okay, this question is from Eduardo, that's at Landacrew. He says, is Stipe's legacy intact after Saturday, or will losing to Francis and other current top heavyweights hurt his ranking as the heavyweight GOAT? #AskSplitPod. So, and then to clarify, Stipe, of course, has not lost to Francis. I am assuming this would be, assuming in the future.
Hypothetically
that Stipe loses.
Stipe set in stone as the best UFC heavyweight of all time right now.
Is he the greatest? Is he the greatest heavyweight? Is he better than Fedor or not?
Not in his prime, no. Fedor would have beat Stipe Miocic.
We disagree. We really disagree, man.
In their apex is 100%, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's just sort of the popular hipster answer. I disagree.
No, that's the answer for anyone old enough to have watched Fedor, which isn't you.
The old.
Remember, you started watching the fighting game when Uriah Faber came along. That was way after Fedor.
Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? So Fedor wasn't big in 2009, 10, 11,
Well, Fedor's
12.
career started in 2002, though. So I mean, he was already 7 years into his run when you got into the fight game.
First of all, I was watching Faber back in 2000, friggin' 4 or 5, whenever the Dominic Cruz.
I'm just saying, the more
were.
hipster thing is to hate on Fedor, because anyone who watched Fedor over the longevity of his career, especially during his 30-fight win streak or whatever, knows that the prime Fedor's the best heavyweight of all time.
Why didn't he go to the UFC when he had the shot in 2010?
Because he made a bunch of money not conforming to Dana White's circus show. What do you mean?
It just sucks, man, because, I understand there were a lot of great fighters in Asia. There were, but the best has always been the UFC, even since 2005, man.
He beat a prime Crow Cop. He beat a prime Minotauro. I mean, Minotauro was considered arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time the greatest submission heavyweight of all time.
Yeah.
When they brought Minotauro over from Pride to the UFC, not only did he become champion, but he was billed as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. And this is after Fedor had beat him. So the UFC's marketing machine tells people who's the greatest of all time. So that's what I'm going to say there.
Fair enough. I mean, I was lucky enough, by the way, to see Fedor live at Bellator 198 in April 2018.
Oh, yeah, what, a 40-year-old Fedor? Come on, dude.
Well, he beat Frank Mir in 48 seconds. I thought it was a
decent
performance.
No, I know, but
I thought the performance was decent, but I guess you feel differently.
12 years ago.
No, I hear you. No, Fedor was great. Honestly, I don't think there's an easy answer to that GOAT debate.
There's not an easy answer, and Stipe is an elite all-time top 2 or 3 heavyweight, no doubt. But I just feel like Fedor at his best would have edged him. Much more explosive striker. Judo or his sambo would have nullified any wrestling Stipe may have tried. I think he's a more versatile submission artist than Stipe. Okay, we can get off it.
Okay, cool. So next question. This is from Sebastian. That's at CoolHandle1. Love Sebastian. What's up? An OG. He says, who would you guys like to see Jones fight first at heavyweight, and how would you feel if he got the immediate title shot? #AskSplitPod.
Well, I'm like a broken record. I think that fight's going to happen, and I honestly want to see it. I think John Jones versus Skinny Stipe is the most intriguing fight they can now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, for some reason, to me, Jones versus Ngannou has this sort of electric feel to it.
Well, that's because you have a sick, demented
No, but okay, yeah,
death wish against John Jones.
So you think that I believe that Stipe doesn't have a good shot against John, and that's why I prefer the Ngannou fight? It's fine. You can, yeah, go ahead.
I definitely think that
you think I'm wrong. You think there's no.
I think John Jones could comfortably win a point fight versus Stipe Miocic.
Did I ever say otherwise? You're misunderstanding me. I said there was an electricity to Jones and Ngannou.
No, of course. That's an exciting fight as well, no doubt.
Do you think that Miocic Jones is just as exciting? I don't myself.
Maybe not as exciting in like the chaotic sense, but in the legacy historical impact. I mean, Miocic versus John Jones is more important than goodness, that's an all-time. I mean, you're talking about the greatest 205er to ever step in the octagon versus the greatest heavyweight to ever step in the octagon. I don't think we've ever had a fight where the two best fighters in each division in the history of the sport are stepping in versus each other. Have we?
Well, that's an excellent point. The one time, I mean, featherweight, McGregor was taking on the greatest featherweight, obviously, in Jose Aldo, but that's not the same.
Yeah, that's
McGregor
not
wasn't the greatest. Yeah, right. No, I hear you.
This would be this is the equivalent of GSP versus Anderson Silva.
Right. I honestly never thought of it that way.
It's a true super fight.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, again, respectfully, that you're mistaken. I think that Stipe versus Ngannou 2 will happen first, and Jones will get the winner. And I think Ngannou's going to sleep Stipe about halfway through that first round, and it's going to be Ngannou versus Jones. But we'll see. I could be totally wrong. Sorry?
I said I cannot wait to see. Like we said earlier, there's lots of options, and a lot of them sound good.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Moving on.
The one thing that doesn't sound good is DC Stipe 4.
Well, that's very true. I will have a panic attack if DC doesn't actually retire, for the record. He needs to go now. Keep everything in your legacy now. Leave.
All right. You got one queued up?
Yep. This is from @thegamer3R357, Proper Vegetables. Love this guy. He says, Luke Thomas made an interesting suggestion of having two referees for main events, one inside the octagon and the other watching from a screen. What do you think of this idea? So I did hear this. I confess that even though I often hate on Luke Thomas, because I've hated aerials so often lately, I've started listening to Morning Combat, which is not a bad show, with Luke and Brian Campbell. Brian's a clown, but that's okay. Moving on, I think it's a chaotic and bad decision, Fight Geek. Why? Because if one ref disagrees with the other ref, which is liable to happen, now you've got chaos. Now you've got a 50-50 split.
And who's the final say?
Exactly. And I think it's ripe for a situation where they disagree. Am I wrong?
No, I can see that. And then it comes to a point where, who
and that would make things even worse. Imagine if they have some kind of, tie break, and it's really controversial. Oh, my gosh.
No, I think from that same show, not to steal too much of their content, but I think they also made some good ideas or made some good points regarding if the referees in these fights were penalizing eye pokes and groin strikes, stuff like that more, we'd see less of it, but the refs are not enforcing. We saw 4 eye pokes in the trilogy, and none of them, there 1 point taken. So there definitely needs to be some adjustments with the reffing. I don't know if it's adding another one or having them enforce stricter rules. I'd lean more towards enforcing penalties more. It seems like we see people grabbing the fence, kicking the cup, poking the eyes, smacking the back of the head, every single fight card, and nobody ever gets a point taken. It's time to start taking points for these fouls, and then maybe we'll see a lot less of this, and then there'll be a lot less of this controversy regarding the referee.
Yep. Totally agree. This next question.
I mean, right? There should have they should have taken a point.
No, they definitely should have. I mean, don't even get me started, Fight Geek, because we could talk for an hour about, the UFC's MMA gloves. I think they need to be more like the Bellator gloves, which are curved inward.
Every weekend, guys are grabbing the cage to help themselves.
Poking eyes are getting worse. The eye
hit in the back of
worse.
the head. It's almost like, how can we see it all the time? And like the ref never stops the action and never, it's strange to me. I think they should enforce more of those rules.
What do you think of the fact, just really quick while we're on it, Bellator's gloves are slightly more curved inward. You can still grapple, but it's so that your fingers are not pointed towards your opponent when you're, when you've got your hands up.
I mean,
I think that's way better.
Know statistically, but it seems just off memory that there's less eye pokes in Bellator. It's because they have less fights. I don't know statistically if that's
They don't even have that many less fights. They just, no one talks about them because they suck.
Well,
that was a joke, but yeah.
But I'm just saying, I don't remember. I mean, every single fight on these UFC Fight Night cards have a groin shot, an eye poke. It's like, I don't know what to do with that kind of stuff.
Yep. Totally agree. I think they should definitely look into experimenting lightly with the gloves, a la Bellator style. But moving on. So this is from @Matt the MMA fan. Do you see the Sugar Show coming back around, or do you share my views that he never really beat the true elites? Fight Geek, start us off.
No, I think he'll come around. Again, he's 25. He was getting pushed a little fast. The UFC is notorious for pushing people a little too fast. See, Darren Till.
Oh, best fight the best. Whatever.
It's true, but I mean, when you're 25 and you have 4 UFC fights, I mean, you're relatively raw. So I think they were biting more than they could chew, pushing him for this fight. But I do think that he'll have a productive career. I definitely think he has the potential to compete with the elites, especially considering he's 3 to 5 years away from his true prime. So in 3 years, who knows what that landscape of that division looks like. At his size, almost 6 feet tall, he's probably going to end up being a featherweight at some point. So I still think there's a bright future for Sean.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I wish him all the best. He's definitely an exciting character and an even more exciting fighter. So wish him all the best, quick recovery, and hopefully his body stands up. I think it's yet to be seen whether his body can handle the rigors of a active MMA career, but I certainly hope that it can. So moving on, Fight Geek, this question's from Pat Tobin @Pat_Tobin, a split pod OG. Pat, what up? He says, if Stipe fights Jones, will Stipe try and pack on more muscle or stay the lean Stipe that we saw against DC? If he stays lean, who will have the size/weight advantage given they're the same height? And how big of a factor will that be in their fight? #AskSplitPod. What an excellent question, Pat.
Yeah, awesome question. And great. I think Stipe has to stay thin to have a chance to beat John Jones. Yeah. John's biggest advantage coming up from 205 is going to be his quickness and his cardio, in my opinion. Jones is going to be walking around at his natural weight, which I assume is probably 220 to 225. Stipe had to cut weight to 233. So if Stipe were to come in at 240, 250, 245-ish, you're talking about 20 pounds heavier than John, which would leave him vulnerable to gas out before John. So I definitely think the lean Stipe is built for a John Jones fight.
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, actually, Fight Geek, I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong on a very, I think, controversial opinion I have, but I feel very strongly about this. Now, if I'm John Jones right now, I am pushing very, very hard for the Stipe Miocic fight. Here's why. I believe, and I know I'm in the minority here, Fight Geek, I believe very strongly that Jones has a much better chance at beating Stipe Miocic than he does Francis Ngannou. I know that doesn't add up with MMA.
I agree with you.
You do agree?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because no one agreed with me on Twitter.
That's why John would want the Stipe fight. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
I think he's got a way better chance against Stipe than he does against Francis. Way better.
No doubt. I think he will beat Stipe, and I believe he believes he will beat Stipe. I don't think he's rushing heavyweight division to fight Francis. I mean, if he ends up the heavyweight champion, I'm sure he'll defend against Francis, but he's not going to debut at heavyweight versus Francis. That's absurd.
Oh my gosh, I'm shocked that you agree with me. Most people were really pushing back hard on me saying
this game is a game of stock. John Jones, whether you like to admit it or not, sits on the top of the mountain. He's not going to take, just like Conor McGregor. McGregor's trying to get a 170 with Anderson Silva. These guys won fights they feel comfortable with because winning everything. So, yeah, I don't think that, prime Francis Ngannou heavyweight debut, that's something that John Jones, I could be wrong, but I don't think that that's even on his radar. He saw Steve beat a guy he beat handily in the past and felt comfortable with beating that fighter. And if he feels comfortable beating a fighter that happens to be the heavyweight champion of the world and arguably the heavyweight GOAT, why don't you go for that fight?
Yep, definitely. Okay, moving on really quick. Second to last question, also from Jacob Powers, #AskSplitPod. Is it a coincidence that John Jones waited until DC retired to announce that he's moving up? How much of it is just so DC can't have his time in the limelight?
I honestly don't think there's much truth to that.
Oh, you are insane, bro. It was 4 hours after DC's announcement. Are you kidding?
Well, that's heavyweight conversation of him versus Stipe. Honest, I mean that is.
He couldn't have waited. He couldn't have waited 24 hours, huh? Or even 12 hours.
DC didn't even make his formal retirement announcement until the following day on.
Yeah, that's why it was so messed up that Jones announced it immediately after.
So Jones is supposed to and his social media habits around the career of Daniel Cormier.
Okay. It doesn't matter what he's supposed to do. All I want to know from you, Fight Geek, is was it a coincidence or not?
Yes.
Get out of here. Guys, Fight Geek is literally delusional.
I don't think that Daniel Cormier occupies as much space in John's head as you do. John Jones dispatched of Daniel Cormier multiple times and doesn't. I don't feel
and
like
yet
John
he
Jones
can't fill half a stadium prior to COVID-19.
He knows in his heart that he'll whoop Daniel Cormier's ass if they fight, and that's all he needs to know.
Then why is he so upset with his contract? Why is he so sad that he has to relinquish his belt because he won't get paid?
Get in a cage, he's not going to lose to DC. So why does he? I just don't understand.
This is why I think he's upset, Justin, or Fight Geek. Excuse me. Why he's upset is because he can defend 30 more times.
I think everything's pointing up for John Jones.
He can defend 30 more times. Still, no one's going to love him. He's still not going to be popular.
Well, I don't think John Jones is concerned about his popularity. I think he's concerned about...
He's obsessed with it.
I don't know. I don't think his popularity is something that's ever going to reach... he's obviously a divisive character. He's never going to be the number one guy on the roster anymore. So, you take with what comes.
All right. Fair enough. I think that's fair. Okay, so then moving on. This question is from Oscar Silva at WWE UFC _fan. How well do you see Santiago Ponzinibbio doing upon his return to the octagon, and who in the top 10 matches up well with him?
Well, Santiago Ponzinibbio and Brian Ortega have a lot of similarities in my opinion. They're both were shooting up the rankings, and then all of a sudden they disappeared for like 2 years. So,
well, one's a 145 or one's a 170.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is they both were red hot, and for each of them have their own reasons. They all of a sudden took like a 2-year hiatus, so it's kind of hard to gauge where they'll be when they come back from being elite but having such an extended layoff. So it's a tough question. I obviously think he's a clear top 15 170-pound fighter, probably top 10. I could see him coming back versus someone like Michael Chiesa, Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson.
Yeah, I like all those. I don't even dislike RDA or Vicente Luque.
Or, if I didn't live a whole Jeff Neal episode, but maybe Jeff Neal versus Ponzinibbio when he's ready.
Ooh. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, that would make some good sense.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, actually.
So,
That's a pretty
I
good
mean, I
one.
was really becoming a fan of Ponzinibbio's, but like I said, he just disappeared.
Yep, he did. He disappeared without any explanation, and that's sort of the way it is. But excited to see what he's got coming back. Okay, do you have another question, or is that it for us?
We have the listener question, or the email question. You know that, right?
Oh, yes, of course.
Uncle Jim left us one. Come on.
Of course I knew that. Of course. Of course. Okay, so really quickly while I'm getting to that, what do you overall think is at stake for the winner of Frankie Edgar versus Pedro Munoz this weekend? I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on that.
What's at stake?
What happens? Yeah, so the winner, they win. Okay, great.
The
Now
winner
what?
of this fight fights the winner of who's Sandhagen fighting again? Pull it up. Sandhagen Mirai's winner can fight
Oh, that's
the winner
right.
of this fight. So Sandhagen Mirai, actually, let's put it this way: if Marlon Mirai's actually is Aljamain next, it's such a tough division to call. Let's say the winner of Marlon Moraes fights the winner of Munoz Edgar.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with
And
that.
then that can be a true number one contender match for after Aljamain gets his shot.
Yeah, at some point, everyone should know that at some point, 100% TJ Dillashaw is going to come and just stomp on everyone's dreams and totally just take it over.
You believe that's happening?
100%. But that's not. He's not eligible till
I
January.
think April, right?
I thought it was
Of
January.
Oh, it might be January.
But
Or no, it's the end of January.
I still think Sterling is going to get his rightful title shot prior to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think, based on the suspension, I mean, who knows nowadays, but I don't think TJ will get an immediate title shot. I just don't see that.
Yeah, we'll see. But okay, really quick, right before our final question from Jim Asoon, the man, the myth, the legend. Guys, if you enjoyed the show, give us a quick subscribe on iTunes, on Spotify, on YouTube, whatever you're listening to us on. Give us 5 stars if you feel nice. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show, it helps us continue. And without further ado, here is Jim Asoon.
What's going on, you bunch of fucking casuals? Yo, Mikey, hope you're doing well. My question for you this week is, do you really think DC is retired? Or do you think now that the fight's over, he's not going to want to go out on a loss and he's going to want to, go out on a win? Maybe not a championship fight, but at least on a win, That's my question for you this week. It's always worth wanting. Hey.
Thank you, Jim. All right,
Yep.
I love it.
That's what I was alluding to earlier. I have a feeling, and this is going to make your whole Francis title shot even more murky, because if John Jones were to beat Stipe Miocic, I could possibly see DC coming back to fight him at heavyweight.
Oh man, I hope to God not, because look,
But you can see that scenario.
I can. I mean, if anyone's close with DC, look, I would sit him down myself and say, DC, you took a full year to do better than your rematch. You looked like shit. I can't believe you won 2 rounds. You looked horrible, frankly. You didn't follow any of the game plan, and you'll disgrace your career if you continue. And I love DC, and that would be the words I would use.
Yeah, well,
Is that too intense?
With that said, if John Jones is holding the heavyweight strap in 12 months, I could see DC coming.
No,
back.
you're right. I know you're right. I'm just scared of you being right, so I'm trying to talk.
But
you
I
out of
don't.
it.
Yeah, that again. Agree. That wouldn't be a good move, especially for his legacy, because people. There's recency bias, and people remember what you just did. A lot of the nation didn't even know DC when he won the Strikeforce Grand Prix, so. Those accomplishments go by the wayside pretty quick when you lose a couple fights.
Absolutely. Okay, so with no further ado, Fight Geek, that's it. Take us away, baby.
All right, guys. As usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude. We're at Split_podcast. 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.